Welcome back, guys. It is craft time. In today's video, we are making over a cedar chest. So let's go ahead and get started. This chest went on a journey. It started out here, this green color. This was left in my boyfriend's home whenever he purchased it, or his previous home. And I wanted to kind of bring new life into it by also like holding on to its original integrity. So I got started. I started with a really fine grit sandpaper, and I did a very, very light sanding on the inside. And what I'm doing here is just kind of like reactivating that cedar. I'm getting that top layer just kind of out of there, and yeah, just refreshing the cedar smell and just kind of bringing the life back to it. From there, I went ahead and changed my grit to a little bit more of a harder grit, and I sanded the entire outside of the piece. It had like a glossy sheen on it that I just wanted to break so that when I painted it, I know that it was going to stick well. So I did that all over, and then I wiped the inside and outside to get any of that dust that might be remaining. After that, I started painting it. Now, I wanted to paint it blue, and I think this stems from the fact that I had a bright blue chest in my childhood bedroom that I loved, and I think subconsciously it was just there, and I didn't know why it had to be blue, but it just did in my head. But I hated it by the time it was done. So here we are back about a year later, and I'm going to try again. I just put this away and didn't look back, but now it is time. So here you see me using some salt wash. I did this in the original painting when I did it blue as well. And what this does is add some texture to the piece. What you can do is add it to your colors and then layer them, and then as you layer them and you add it, when you sand it down, that salt wash where it's textured and raised will sand away, and you can see the previous colors that you put on it. I am doing this here again, just in a few spots with this black, because I want some of that texture to be there, but I also want some of that blue from underneath to stay, and I'm going to do that in several different ways, and one of them is with this salt wash. So I'm just doing a rough patch all over this wherever I want to, and I'm just kind of stippling it on with my brush so that it can leave that nice good texture to it. I'm just going to do that all over wherever I want, and then I'm going to allow it time to dry, and then I'm going to be able to move forward. I'm just going to show you here kind of like what it looks like up close. You can see, and like the thicker you make it, it says to make it like an icing consistency. So you can make it thicker if you want a more heavier texture, or a little thinner if you're just wanting a tiny bit. So that's kind of like a personal preference. From there, after it's dry, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to hand sand down these parts to let some of that blue pop back through. And then I'm going to wipe it clean with a wet paper towel to make sure there's no residue left. And then from there, I'm going to start painting. Now, I will say with the salt wash, you usually want to do it like in your entire layer, paint it, get it ready, and then go ahead and paint your next layer and do all that before you sand. I'm just doing it really differently here because I've already done those layers before when I first did this chest, but I'm not going to go through all of that with you. We'll use the salt wash again in another video if you guys are interested in learning more about it. So yes, here you see me. I'm going to do this in sections. I'm painting on that black paint that I want to use, and then I'm using a big car wash sponge, and I am just patting that all over the section that I'm just painting. So I'm making sure the paint is still wet, and I am just leaving some very fine texture because the sponge, doesn't have a ton of texture. It's pretty smooth, but just leaving some texture all over that to where you can still see those blue tones coming in from underneath, because I'm wanting this to be a galaxy theme. So it's kind of like the night sky. So here you see me, I'm wanting to add some more black tone to this, but without doing a full second layer because I think that would be too thick. So I'm just painting on the paint onto the sponge really thinly and then dabbing it and blending it where I see fit. So I'm just going to continue to do this all over until I'm happy with it, but again, not covering it completely. I don't want to black it out. I want those blue tones to kind of show through. So I'm just going to continue to do this until it meets my eye into where I think it looks good. Like I said, if you would want a thicker, a thicker coat on this, you would just paint it on like you did the first time and then pat it around. Once that is how I like it, I am going to take some white, just acrylic paint and some water and a really kind of rough bristled brush, and I'm going to dip it in both the water and the paint, tap off any of the excess drips, and then I am going to use my finger to run it across those bristles to make little droplets all over this. And I am creating stars, so I'm going to put down a first layer of star all over the trunk because I want these to kind of be in the background. What I'm doing with all of this texture and these stars and stuff and the paint and leaving some of the blue tones is I'm creating dimension. So whenever I layer my next sections of paint, you're going to see the stars behind it as well as on top when I'm done. So I am just, again, taking my finger and I am flicking these bristles. And the closer you get and the further away you get and the harder and softer you flick the bristles, that's going to determine how big the stars are. And this is also the same technique you can use for snow, but for snow you would do it very last so that it looks like it's over top of your entire painting, whatever it is you're painting. Anyway, moving forward, I have these sponges here that I went ahead and cut down. This is that same sponge I used at the beginning. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of water and then the paint color that I want, and I'm just going to start dabbing this across. And I'm going to kind of try to, again, go with a galaxy theme. So I am just using acrylic paints here in the colors that I want, and I'm just going to layer them until I'm happy. So I'm starting out here with just white, just kind of getting the shape that I want and the sides that I want, and I'm just going to dab the white paint on, and if it goes on too thick, I just dip my sponge in some water and I go ahead and dab it and kind of blend it out. So at this point, I have done dark blue, a slight bit of green, and now I'm going in with some pink and some purple, doing that same thing. I'm dabbing my sponge in some water, not to where it's dripping or anything, just to where it has a little bit of moisture on it. And then I'm dabbing it in my paint. I'm offloading any excess, and then I'm dabbing it all over the piece. And then I'm coming back in with that water on the sponge, and I'm dabbing it and blending it out until I'm happy. So just keep doing this over and over. I'm using white, dark blue, green, pink, kind of like a darker pink, and a dark purple. And then I came back in and did another layer of white on top to kind of diffuse some stuff. And now I'm using some color shift and metallic paints because I want to have a little bit of shine and sparkle in here. And I'm using like a dark blue, a bright green, and a dark purple on it. And I'm doing the same thing, dabbing it in water, putting it down, using a wet sponge to kind of blend it out. Once I was done with that, I did add more stars, and then all that was left is to seal it. So after I let it dry overnight, I am going back in with some polycrylic and a semi-gloss because I do want this piece to have some shine to it, especially with those metallic paints that are on there. And I am just going to seal this entire thing in with a really soft bristled brush. I'm going to paint it all over. I'm actually going to end up doing 2 coats. I only did 1 for this video, but I'm going to go back in and go opposite directions of the brush strokes I did just to make sure everything's sealed really nice. But I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, with how it started here in this green, journey into the blue, which just, I don't know what happened, guys. But now here she is. I'm super excited about it. It, like I said, was a year-long process of what am I going to do with this? I guess I was kind of encouraged by the eclipse, but I would love to know what you guys think about it in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if this is the type of content you enjoy. Consider subscribing to my channel if you are new here, and I will see you guys next time.